by Glimlip and Nokia 2021. Welcome back to Hybrid Theory. I'm Aurian Archive, and let's get started. Once again, we're talking about sound. And I start each episode of Hybrid Theory or Build Theory by naming the track that I am presently listening to. And that track, or a series of tracks, whatever the playlist actually is, defines the mood and temperament of how I would like things to go. Do I want it to be soft and calm, or do I want it to be bright and peppy? Do I want it to be hard and obnoxious? So choosing the music that's playing in my ears has an effect on the temperament of the hybrid theory or the build theory itself. And when it comes to PC audio, that is, when it comes to playing audio back on a personal computer, we kind of need to start not necessarily 1997, but even earlier to the first Sound Blaster cards or the first Sound Blaster ISA. And Sound Blaster ISA, let's see if we can actually get a date on there. Um, Okay, and first Sound Blasters were listed in 1990, and okay, as we can see very quickly here on the Wikipedia page, first generations were the 8-bit ISA and MCA cards, CT1310, and so on going down the line. And the one we probably want to focus on is the 16-bit ISA card, the CT1330, which appeared in 1991. And the second part that we need to start with is the Red Book audio format. Now, the Red Book audio format are compact digital disc audio. And again, we'll reference Wikipedia. Standard is IEC 60908. And do we actually have a date here? Okay, the first commercially available audio CD player was released in October 1982 in Japan. Now, what's important here to keep in mind then is that the idea of a 16-bit, and okay, we actually have encoding over here, 2 channels of LPCM audio, each signed 16-bit value sampled at 44K. This was in the early 1980s. Specifically, 1982 is the first physical release, so the development would have been across 1980 and 1981. Flash forward to 1991, and you have the first 16-bit ISA card from Sound Blaster that are coming onto the market. And you go down to Sound Blaster 16, again, 16-bit audio, Sound Blaster All 32, introduce MIDI, and you kind of keep going down. You didn't really have any changes in the bit processing. We get all the way down to Sound Blaster Live, and it came in 1998. And this is when we kind of have to jump back to 1997, because across 1995, the introduction of Windows 95 and Microsoft Windows was very big on Intel processors. Intel realized they needed to standardize the audio format that was being used in mostly the Intel Windows computers. And then, so in 1997, we had the AC97, also known as MC97 for modem codec 97. And it was developed in 1997, and it basically defined a high-quality 16-bit or 20-bit audio architecture, supposedly supporting 5.1 surround sound. So a year later, after Intel has announced and put forward their 5.1 audio solution, Sound Blaster drops with the Sound Blaster Live, which brought a programmable digital signature processor. And again, as Wikipedia does note, IBM actually had already done it with the M-Wave sound cards, and Turtle Beach was already doing the same kind of thing with the professional Hurricane sound cards. But anyone who ever had an M-Wave sound card it sucked, and most people didn't have the cash on hand to buy a Hurricane sound card. And Live was built on Creative. They called it the EMU 10K chip. And the thing is, I had lots of Sound Blaster Live cards. I've still got a CT4830 card sitting around here somewhere. But the big thing about Sound Blaster Live wasn't necessarily the audio quality that it brought to processing. It was the EAX, the environmental audio effects, where various effects could be added to a game in real time. Now, if you were playing Half-Life back in this 1990s time, you may be familiar with the effects of the water, like running through a water puddle. The EAX really did add something to the audio quality or the experience of audio at that time. And this is where I'm now going to do a quick search, and we're going to do 24-bit. Okay, then we're now going to do 96. And what I'm looking for is a specific, okay. And here we have the Audigy series is the first time that we really see 96K mentioned, and this is also Sound Blaster Audigy 2. This is 2002. Featured an updated EMU 10K2, so second generation processor, and it was the first DMA engine capable of 24-bit precision and up to a 192 kilohertz sampling rate. And the important thing to note here is that 2002 is really the first time that we're talking about 24-bit 96K as a achievable standard for PC audio. And going back to 1997 and AC97, which was being implemented on all Intel systems and was being copied by Realtek and other vendors for use in other systems. And everybody kind of agreed on one thing. 16-bit 44K sample rates weren't good enough for audio reproduction. Even the big vendors, Sony and Philips, recognized that the specifications for the CD-Comp, the Redbook audio format, wasn't quite good enough. And this is where we get to the Super Audio CD, and this was introduced in 1999. So let's step through here again. 97, the AC7 codec. 1998, you had the Sound Blast. Let's go back. Sound Blaster Live with EAX. So it's again we're going up to Sound Blaster Live has copied AC97 and improved upon it. Not by much, but they did improve upon it. And Sony and Philips go, okay, audio quality, the CD format, the standard AC97 codec is just not good enough. And then we have the Super Audio CD, and this was developed across 1997, 1998, and first announced or released or introduced, I think it says, in 1999. And one of the big things about the encoding is that it brought digital DSD, or direct stream digital. And direct stream digital gives you a higher bit rate and a higher sampling rate. And this was really the first digital format that was not a liquid plastic that was considered to be an audiophile grade solution. We actually do have these specifications up here. A sequence of bit value sampling. Okay. The DSD had quote unquote 64 times the CD sampling rate, but only a fraction of the 16-bit resolution. So it was a different method of storing, but it was. The thing is, you had a mechanically superior method of capturing and playing back audio. And the reason why I'm going over all of this is that there was another competing format, DVD audio. And DVD audio was developed for high fidelity audio content on DVD. And the first discs entered the marketplace in 2000. And again, this is a recognition that the Red Book format, 16-bit at 44K, just wasn't good enough for audio playback. It was not an accurate representation of the sound quality. And DVD audio, if we scroll down, we do actually have the listing here that you did have a 16-bit 44 sample rate. But DVD audio did support in stereo up to 192 Hz at a 24-bit sample rate. And this is quite important because not only can you play back, if you master at 192 by uh, uh, 192 kilohertz at 24 bits per sample, you have very good audio capture. But you'll also notice that at full surround 5.1, so 5 discrete channels and one subwoofer, one bass line, you can still do 24 bits at 96K. So this is really where we get 24 bits, 96K was decided on by the DVD implementers, by the DVD forum, that it was an relatively accurate representation of the captured audio. Okay, so that kind of lets, go over the history one more time. All the way back in the early, the first generation, so in the late 1980s to 1990s and beforehand, you pretty much had 8-bit and 16-bit sound cards. And then with the sound, then in 97, you had Intel who stepped in with the AC97 codec. Everyone agreed it wasn't good enough. And then in 1998, you had Sound Blaster answer the AC97 with Sound Blaster Live and improve upon it. Then you had the Super Audio CD follow up, and with the CD vendors going, our audio's not good enough. And although they did things differently, they did things so differently that there wasn't really a direct comparison tech for tech. And then you had the DVD forum, which decided that later that, okay, we can do better. We are going to do better, and they settled on an encoding format that is directly comparable to the CD format, and it is better. And and this is 2000. We basically have an acceptable compromise on encoding frequency and sample rates. And then we get to the Sound Blaster Audigy, which was Sound Blaster Audigy again to 2001, and the 2002, so 2001, 2002, you have Sound Blaster who are improving PC audio, the actual real-time generation audio, up to 24-bit with 192 kilohertz. And then also in this mix, you have the VIA NV True Audio initiative. And this again was pressure on VIA bringing 24-bit 192 hertz down to a value range. The Chaintech VIA NV was quite an incredibly good seller. And VIA also pushing 32-bit 38 4K studio sound into home systems at affordable price points. So we kind of have our trajectory here of all of the audio formats that we kind of maybe talk about today are predicated on the work that various vendors already did in the past. And this also let's talk about some of those other vendors that were involved. Now, one of the people realize is that lossless audio has been something that's been around for a few decades. In fact, FLAC 0.4 was released or announced or put out on 23rd December 2000. So, right around the same time that Intel is being pressured to do something because AC97 sucks, Sound Blaster is trying to figure out how to make an AC97 like system work better, and effectively they succeeded with Live and then with Audigy. And then you had both the CD vendors and then the DVD forum going, okay, our audio is not good enough. We need to find a way to improve our audio. They did, but neither format really took off for various reasons. Now, most people do know what that reason was. Uh, a little company you may have heard of called Apple released something called an iPod, and the first iPod was 2001. So at the same time that DVD audio is trying to bump up the basic sampling rate for audio capturing, so stereo audio 192 at 24 bits, and CD audio is Super Audio CD, and Sound Blaster and the other vendors in the PC CD space, PC sound capable of better ranges of frequency response. Yet Apple had dropped the iPod. And suddenly everyone, instead of talking about lossless audio, they were just talking about CD quality audio that could go anywhere the person went. This little thing here, iPod, absolutely obliterated all the work done by the DVD forum, all the work done by Intel on the Azalea high definition audio, which was a step up, a welcome step up from AC97. But it's almost because of the iPod that we've come to expect 16-bit 44K sampling rates as the standard for media playback. Not not in 1990, not in 2000, not in 2001, not in 2010. We're talking about 2019, 2020, 2021, where an audio format in the time of the original iPod, literally from the time of the original iPod, is the default format that many PC vendors or PC audio vendors tune their devices to. Think I'm joking? Tell me, can you tell me off the top of your head how is high-res music defined? You've probably seen it splattered everywhere. This soundbar is high-res music compatible. This media player is high-res music compatible. Or an amplifier that I've got right in front of me says high-res audio and a bright yellow sticker. I've got another one that says high-res audio and a bright yellow sticker. What exactly does high-res audio mean? Does high-res audio mean the Super Audio CD specifications? Does it mean the DVD audio specifications with 192 hertz sample rate at 24 bits? Actually, no. According to the, what is this? The RIAA, where have we heard that? The Recording Industry Association of America. High-res audio is only defined as 48K 20-bit or higher. Let me repeat that. High-res audio is defined by the Recording Industry Association of America as 48K at 20 bits or higher. What was the AC97 specification? 20-bit audio at 48K sampling rate? Okay, technically there is a 90K sampling rate at 20-bit stereo resolution, but I'm not aware of any implemented system that actually exposed that to be used. I'm not aware of any AC97 system that exposed a 20-bit sampling rate. And believe me, I've fixed enough of them. So what we've got here then is the high-res music specification isn't actually based on the DVD form. It's not based on Super Audio CD. It's based on AC97. It's literally a format that is old enough to legally drink in the United States. Yeah, that's kind of a problem. The thing is, labels should mean something. If you slap high resolution audio on something, there is an expectation that your audio product is actually capable of high fidelity audio playback that is of a modern standard using modern equipment, not predicated on a standard over 21 years of age. And no, I'm not joking. I mean, it's literally right here on the RA's own site, 48K 20-bit. That's AC97. And no, I do not know if Intel actually had a hand in helping the RAAA figure out what their high-resolution audio specification was going to be. But okay, and the reason why I'm going through all of this is I have had troubles over the past several years articulating why I really dislike entry-level gaming headphones. And bit of history here, I do credit SteelSeries for one of their gaming headphones early on when they were still just a small company. They sent me a pair, and they sent me a USB DAC to go with it. And the difference between the USB DAC and the AC97 of the, I think it was AC97 compliant. It was an HP N5470 laptop, and yes, I can look the specifications up and tell you exactly what sound controller it had. In fact, let's go find out. HP N5470 specs. And here's our manuals. Whether or not that actually gives me a actual manual. Okay. Using the computer, using the modem. Okay. Do we actually have a specifications? Okay, hardware specifications. Okay, the physical attributes, chipset. This was AMD Athlon. So, video chip, S3 Savage. Display, mass storage. So it was an Alley. And let's go over audio, built-in microphone, 2 stereo speakers. Doesn't actually tell us what the sound chip was, but we probably can look up the Alley. So let's do that real quick. Alley. And okay. This is from Tom's Hardware. And the Alley Magic 1. Alright. And all it says really is integrated sound. So the Alley chipset was apparently responsible for configuring the sound. And I'm pretty sure that the Alley was an AC97 compatible codec. Now, the point of going through all of this is that SteelSeries blew my mind with their headphones. I mean, I would have already described myself as an audiophile with the equipment that I had, but most of my stereo equipment, most of my audio equipment simply wasn't compatible with a PC. And part of that is down to the size of the headphone jacks and impedance. Now, when it comes to audio impedance, and this is something where, maybe looking it up might be helpful. Audio impedance. And understanding impedance, sound on sound. And you have what is impedance in audio. And the simplest way I'm going to explain impedance is that impedance is the amount of electrical force that is required to move a speaker diaphragm, or it is a measure of the amount of electricity that is required to overcome the static inertia of the driver or the diaphragm. Thus, a headphone with a high impedance requires more electrical energy to drive the headphone components. A headphone with a lower impedance requires less energy. Well, why does this matter? The simple answer is the more electrical energy that your headphone requires to operate, the more likely it is that your headphones will only work properly with an amplifier. And thus, if they only work properly with an amplifier, the higher chance that an amplifier will only be sending the signals that are the actual music or audio components to drive the headphones. So, the more impedance you have, you need an amplifier. The amplifier should be sending the audio signals that you want the headphones to act upon. So higher impedance headphones generally give you better quality audio. They give you more accurate representation with less line noise because they must be driven by an amplifier, and there are assumptions in the amplifier amplifying the audio signal you want it to amplify and not anything else. And that's where we get into audio transparency. And this is something that you may have heard, audio transparency. This is something you may have heard, and it's like if you look at drop.com SDAC, and we'll see what that gives us. The Mass Drop X Grace Design Standard DAC. And the thing is, in that the standard DAC is designed to convert audio transparently, and then you have the DAC plus O2. Uh, you have the O2 amplifier, which was developed or designed by Northwest AV Guy, the Objective 2 headphone amplifier, and its idea is to be transparent and that the amplifier itself does not add anything additional to the audio signal. So, your amplifiers normally require some kind of filters or some kind of pass system that clarifies the audio for transmission. Thus, if you are driving a high impedance headset off of an amplifier that has a good either filter system or being fed through a filter system that already is feeding a clean audio signal, you can get a very clean sound where nothing has been added. Your headphones are not responding to line noise, they're not responding to additional electronic activity. You get the clearest possible sound reproduction, and you can spend hideous amounts of money on making or building or buying an amplifier that will cleanly boost the sound and drive better quality speakers or better quality headphones. So bringing this back to PC audio in the going all the way back here to the Sound Blaster and the iPod, PC audio had basically hit a standstill. The iPod's MP3 format is not a lossless format. It is a lossy format. MP3 discards information that it calculates that the observer of the music or the observer of the audio will not be able to hear or should be outside of the range of hearing of an average ordinary person. Now, as most people will tell you, if you start using MP3 at low bit rates to compress audio, you set it for maximum file size, MP3 will happily discard harmonies and resonant sounds that it believes are not, or it calculates, not believe, it calculates is more appropriate term, that it calculates that would not be observable by the average listener. And to a certain extent, that may be true because the iPod sold like wildfire. Okay, even I bought an iPod. it was portable music in your hand. And then I also went and bought an iRiver H10 because I actually cared about the quality of my audio. I didn't want my audio sounding like bad. Okay, but the audio PC audio basically come to a standstill. You had vendors who, for the most part, were just replicating AC97. You weren't really moving anywhere on the sound quality. Everything was kind of it just settled around this 16-bit 44 sampling rate, which, as we knew from AC97, wasn't very good at audio reproduction. And even then, CD audio, I should specify, uh, CD audio had a couple other. It defines it as two channels of LPCM audio, so it's actually two channels of 16-bit at 44K, not one channel at 16-bit 44K. So the audio quality on CD is not as bad as it possibly could be, but audio CDs are amazingly susceptible to mastering quality. Is how good was the quality of the audio that the CD is being sampled or compressed from? And this is also why you had a huge explosion of MP3 audios and uh, bands, independent bands not associated with record labels, putting high bitrate MP3s or other audio formats onto their release CDs. You know, you went to a concert, you could pick up a high resolution version of the tracks that have been laid down, or you could even pick up an LP version if you didn't have an LP vendor uh, that was readily available. Okay, all right, flashing forward, flashing around, and kind of want to get back to. So, we're talking about amplifiers. And the amplifier that, again, going back to PC audio and how much the amplifier mattered. And one of the things with a lot of the early sound cards, the Sound Blasters, the Asus Zonars, the VIA Envies, a lot of them are limited by the PCI bus. If you had a PCI card, you were only limited by the wattage that the PCI bus could transmit, and that wasn't a lot. And if you had an early USB sound card, you were limited by the USB power supply, which wasn't a lot. A USB in later years, we can actually just look this up. Wow, make sure I'm on the right thing. USB power delivery. And you can quickly see that the USB org, or USB.org, or the USB Developers Forum, has been focusing on power delivery, delivering more watts and voltages over the USB system to power external devices. And most people have seen the party trick of an iPhone charging an iPad or an iPhone charging an M1 Mac. It's kind of a neat party trick being able to throw voltages around like that. But for the most part, and going back to SteelSeries all these many years ago, the headset that they sent me and the DAC that they sent with it, I think it was on a USB 2.0 connection. And it completely blew the AC97 compatible codec in the HP M547 I was using out of the water. And it was kind of the first time where I realized that gaming audio, which up to that time had been dominated by the likes of Turtle Beach and Logitech for peripherals, gaming audio actually had a pretty decent future. You had game developers who were openly embracing FLAC or OGG Vorbis inside their game engines. I mean, Unreal Engine still makes a pretty big deal out of it. Supports OGG Vorbis or, and I believe, FLAC, so that you can deliver lossless or high quality compressed audio to your end users. And it's not like these formats have stood still. If we go back to ziff.org and we look up most recent updates, and we see the Vorbis tools have been recently released. Opus has been released. LibVorbis is still being worked on. And we can click on more headlines, and we can see that most of these are fairly recent. 2021, Okay, there's 2017. But okay, Vorbis tools, and this introduces new versions, new tags, fixes various bugs. The Vorbis, the Zip.org, and the Vorbis teams, they're not really sitting still. They're still working on the various projects. And if you go down to each project, you can see that each one is still being worked on. These formats are not simply drifting off into the sunset, say like MP3. And a lot of people are familiar with MP3, but most music today is in an AAC format or some other format. It's no longer necessarily in an MP3 format because MP3 really wasn't that great in audio compression format. It was just popular. And it was popular largely because of the iPod. All right. And getting back to this. SteelSeries cracked open the door for the idea that PC audio on the go, that PC audio over USB, that PC audio in general was not going to be dictated by the desires of Intel. That there were vendors who actually were working on very good chipsets, and I forget what the DAC that SteelSeries was using actually had into it. I think it was a Realtek chipset. Could be wrong on that. It's been long ago. But all of that work towards better audio, producing a higher response time, or lessening the response time, lessening the latency, and increasing the response range. How far, what's your frequency range that your speakers are capable of operating at? It feels like a lot of those have been set at a standstill. When you go out and buy a gaming headset today, I have the personal expectation that I should have a better audio experience on modern hardware, recently released hardware, than I've had on previous generations hardware. I should not be thinking this is the same audio experience that I had on Unreal Tournament 99. And I kind of want to highlight what I expect. And I'm going to go through the devices that I do kind of have available to me. So we're going to bring up sounds. And in sounds, we're going to go to playback. And we can see here, okay, I can't actually, that currently this laptop is talking to the SteelSeries Arctis 1. And as I scroll down, you can also see that at some point the Razer Krakens were hooked up because there's a THX Spatial. And we see that currently we've also got a Vava Voom 23 stereo. Now, just for basics, we're going to start with the Vava Voom because this is a Bluetooth device. And when I click on Advanced, we're going to see that this device is operating on 2-channel 16-bit 44K CD quality audio. Now again, this is a Bluetooth device. And we'll just look this up. Vava Voom 23. And let's see if we can actually get a date for when this came out. And let's see, like, Vava's not even supporting it anymore, but okay. Here we have the Voom 20. We do have the Voom 20 manual. But Vava is into laser projectors, baby thermometers. Not really a whole lot of information about speakers that they had. And you might note that they are related to Tautronics and also Rav Power. And you may note that Tautronics and Rav Power are two brands that have been kicked off of Amazon for shady business practices. So I'm not saying avoid products from Taltronics or Rav Power or Vava, because I have used products from there before. I'm literally still using a product now, but they do kind of tend to be a hit and run kind of company. I'm I'm actually kind of morbidly, yeah, I realize I've gone into a tangent here, and seeing if I can uh, see if we actually have a manual for the Vava Voom speaker. Okay, there's one of the speakers. There's the SK04. And we'll just assume for a second that it's the SK04. Okay, so equipment, Bluetooth speaker. Do we actually have, well, that's the EU Declaration of Conformity, uh, but no actual manual saying what it is. Okay, uh, that's, uh, yeah, again, kind of a shady hit and run dropout, but this is a Bluetooth device. I want to say it's a Bluetooth 2.1. I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's a Bluetooth 2.1 audio device. And to be honest, when you get into Bluetooth older series, and even with Bluetooth 4, there is a hard limit on how much information can actually be passed over the Bluetooth system. Now, yes, I do know that as of I think Bluetooth 3, Bluetooth does the negotiating, and then the actual data transfer occurs on a wireless frequency, like AC, well, like 802.11.AC or 802.11.G. The actual transmission, once the negotiation and processed, is made on a wireless transmission, which has a lot more bandwidth compared to simply the transmission range for Bluetooth itself. But I'm not about to knock Bluetooth devices too hard for less than stellar audio. They are limited by the Bluetooth specification. And that's always been one of the big, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is that it's always been one of the big selling points, and we'll do like Sennheiser wireless. And you can see Sennheiser does wireless headphones. They've actually done several of them. And Sony has done wireless headphones, and always the thing with these wireless headphones with bass stands is that because they are using a radio frequency and not a Bluetooth connection, they're using actual registered FEC or whatever, FCC, sorry, FCC, Federal Communications Commission, or whatever country you're in, something that uses a radio bandwidth that they can use. And the advantage has always been when you are using a radio transmitter, you can get a higher audio transmission than using a Bluetooth or other PC or smart device related infrastructure. Same thing with streaming. If you stream over, do Chromecast over Bluetooth, it sucks. If you do Chromecast over Wi-Fi, it can actually give you a really good image quality. All right. So that's why the difference between Bluetooth and wireless, real quick, and why you'd want to have a wireless connection. Why, when you see someone who has a wireless dongle and they're not using Bluetooth, you have a higher expectation of audio quality transmission. You don't expect to see limitations in the Bluetooth range. So let's flash in forward a bit and look at a portable audio device. In this case, this is the Topping NX2s. Now, I did try to turn this on in a previous live stream and got some kind of Bravo device. Well, as it turns out, if you let the Topping NX2s battery completely drain, the firmware is corrupted. And somebody on drop.com actually had listed in the NX2s and the NX2s discussion a firmware updater. Now, the firmware updater, and you're about to see for a second, doesn't actually install a firmware for the NX2s. It installs a firmware for NX4. Now, thankfully, the hardware is identical enough, and I know this was working because I was. Okay, okay. I am getting it up here, so we are still getting some kind of funky errors on at least this laptop, but we are seeing that that a device calling itself NX4 has been recognized. Okay, there we go. Device is ready. NX4 is set up and ready to go. So this is just Windows being a pain. Why does Windows have to be a pain on a live stream? When is Windows not a pain? Yes, I know I probably could have done this on Linux, but since most people know Windows and my laptop is running Windows, we're doing that. And we'll do properties and we'll do advanced. And we can see here that this is defaulted to stereo 24-bit 48K, which is listed as studio quality. And I do the drop down, and we can see that this device does 2-channel 24-bit 192 hertz, which again is studio quality. So this topping NX2s will actually do the DVD audio quality specification. That's actually pretty good. And that's kind of what you would expect from a mobile amplifier or a good mid-range sound card. But what about a higher end sound card? Say like an actual NX4. Well, I just have an actual NX4. And there we go. And this one, as you can see, is listed as NX4 DSD rather than just NX4. And we'll flip the other one back on for a second so you can see them side by side. There we have NX4 and then you have NX4 DSD. So we're going to go to NX4 DSD. Going to do advanced. And you can see right here that we've started at 32-bit 48K. We had to drop down and a better, again, this is technically a mobile sound card. This will do up to 32-bit 384K sampling rate and actual studio quality. This is the kind of audio quality where you might be mastering or recording your band's release at. This is the kind of audio format you would probably be using because it gives you enough range, enough bit range, enough sampling rate to probably capture every single note, every single harmony, even if it's not humanly audible. If it's machine audible, this is probably the kind of sampling rate that you would get. All right. Now, what about something a little bit more portable? And it should have been somewhere in here. I may have to plug it back in. And where are you? Okay. Don't tell me there's a polarity issue on this. The perils of doing things live. Still not showing up. Okay. We'll turn the X4 off. And we'll do that. Okay. Odd. Let's see what's going on here. What's going on with the NX4 DSD? Well, this was going so well. Alright, while it's doing that, excuse me. Excuse me for a second. Okay, let's go back. And let's do device manager. Yeah, troubleshooting in real time. Ain't it fun? Ah, here we go. What's going on with you? USBs. Okay, let's actually turn you off and disconnect him and simplify the number of devices that we're actually talking to. Cancel. I'm going to be kind of upset if this thing stopped working. Okay. Driver. And let's see what happens. Okay. This is actually slightly embarrassing because this worked on the previous stream. And I do not know why it's not working now. Unless I just have this awful feeling that is fried out. I'm going to be kind of upset if it is. See what happens when I try and pass the signal through it. Device manager. That's interesting. You know, I think it is officially dead. I'm not getting anything from it. Yeah, I think my Zorloo has kicked the bucket literally overnight. And I suspect that a faulty. The thing is, the Zorloo uses a USB micro connector, and since I didn't have I've been running it on a USB Type C to micro cable, and since I didn't have a USB-C out port on the laptop, I got a USB-C to USB Type A connector and then promptly plugged the Zorloo up. And I think the connector may have blown the Zorloo out. Oh, I have. A list of. Oh, wait, that's not good. I think I actually see a crack in the plastic, so. I don't recall it taking an impact, but the USB cable is definitely. Okay, the USB plug has definitely come loose internally. It is wiggling and wobbling around, so I think that the adapter I used on it, I did not realize it, but I think at some point it either hit the ground or got bumped and is now dead. Uh, Freaking. And now I wonder, can I fix Zorloo USB port? I'm a little crushed.